All right, welcome back to another episode of More Than a Mortgage, where we talk about things that are outside of the mortgage itself and things that I think that are important to both realtors, lenders, buyers out there, and things that we're seeing. I'm Mike Black. I'm one of your hosts. This is my other host over here.
Yeah, Tom Merritt.
So we're delighted to be here with you today. And today's episode is what we're getting into right now. It's the spring market. We've talked about that in the past, but today we really want to talk on and touch on why buyers are losing from the get-go. Like why they're losing right from the start. You know, things that are impacting their world. And you know, this all came up yesterday when I had a lunch that I went to, and I was talking to a big name, pretty well respected realtor in the marketplace, and him and I were sitting there talking, and he said, my clients, they're not, they typically don't start the pre-approval process or going through the process with a lender until they find a place that they like. And
it blows my mind. That's crazy. In this market?
Yeah, I just sat there like, wait, so can you say that again? And he repeated that to me, and I just go, how does that happen? Like, how do you get to a point with a client where you're like, hey, I know you really love this place, so you ready to make an offer? Now it's time to talk to a lender and get serious about it. It's mind-boggling. So, one of the things that I think a lot of what we're seeing in the market right now is, buyers coming to the table with these generic pre-approval letters.
And they're not prepared.
They're not prepared. They don't want to spend the time getting all their documentation pulled together. They don't want to spend the time, committing, I guess. There's probably some commitment that's tied into that as well, like with a lender that maybe they just don't know, or I don't know what the reason is.
I think there's another layer in that. I personally believe that it starts with the real estate agent. And the real estate agent is afraid to lose the client. And as such, they do not follow the process. The reality is the process has to start with being pre-approved and understanding what you're dealing with. If you don't, you as the agent are going to be wasting your time potentially, because this may not be a qualified buyer. And so it works a certain way every single time. And if you don't follow that process, then you have a much higher percentage of that blowing up. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen is that, at least through a lot of conversations and coaching I've done with some agents, is they don't want to rock the boat with their clients, so they're not taking control. They're not taking charge and saying, hey, listen, before you get in my car, before we get to the property, I need to make sure without a doubt that you're pre-approved. And that has to be either through my relationships with a lender, or, you know what, I'll show it to you, but it has to be at least from a pre-approval perspective.
Yeah.
It's more like the tail's wagging the dog.
Yeah.
And that,
I agree with that
100%.
I agree with that 100%. And the thing that I've always preached to our loan officers and to like my team and to others that we've coached around the country is that if you want to be one of the greatest in this business, if you want to be great, like there's a lot of people that are, I would say, average. There's a lot of people that are good.
Yeah.
But if you want to be great, you have to build this around a process-driven business, and it has to start with what does your process look like, and control that process and stick to it. And if it doesn't fit into your process and if it doesn't align, that's when you've got to raise some flags up to say, this doesn't work for me, right? And that's, I'm talking about whether it's you want to scale in this business or you want to just not waste a bunch of time and money.
100%. And everyone's process may be a little bit different,
yeah,
but the key is sticking to that process and making sure that it works for you. And quite honestly, the goal of having a process in place is to make sure that you are as efficient and are as productive as possible.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, circling back to your story, is making sure you have a qualified buyer in your car before you show up and show them a bunch of properties.
So let's talk about that. I think sellers are smarter these days. I think listing agents have been burnt beyond belief from 2020 to 2024, 25 with not doing their due diligence or not understanding the multiple offer world the way they should. So they're smarter nowadays.
Absolutely.
So, what we're talking about here is that when you go online, for example, and you punch in a bunch of numbers, and it spits out a pre-approval, is what it says.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it says it on that letter, but that technically is a pre-qualification. It means that you went online, you got a letter printed out, you didn't really have much reviewed. You might have turned in some documents, but we like to call those fluffy letters that you're using for your offer. Feel good letters, so you can give it to your agent. Now, if I was a realtor and I got that letter, I would do a lot of digging on it. Like, I'd be like, where'd this come from? Who'd this come from?
And some do.
And some do.
Those are the great ones.
The great ones do. But I would really do a deep dive on that, because when we're going out to battle, we got to have a what I like to call a bulletproof pre-approval, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit in a second. But so that's a pre-qual. You just go on, you have a casual conversation. They might do a pull on your credit, and you might throw a pay stub or something in there, right? The next step that you could take this is the actual pre-approval, and it's stronger than a pre-qual, but that's where you turn in your income, your assets, your credit. They pull your credit, and have a deep dive on what you're getting into, what you're doing. The loan officer's typically reviewing that on their own, and that's going to hold more weight than the fluffy online printout that you get, or the pre-qualification letter. So you want the pre-approval. Now, the next thing that you can go after, and this is where agents are getting smarter and sellers are getting more in tune, is what we're doing right now is a underwritten. It's been reviewed. We've got a sign off. The offers that I'm winning this year, they have what we call a TBD, or an underwritten, where everything's been signed off on. We've vetted the income really well. We've vetted the assets really well. We know the story. We've sat down and done a deep planning session with the buyers, and now they're equipped.
They understand.
They understand. We're all on the same page, and now they're ready to make what we like to call risky offers, because you have to get risky right now.
Well, in order in this competitive market to win, and that's, I think, the bottom line is, are you serious about purchasing, or are you just kicking tires? Because if you're serious about purchasing, you want to go full bore, have a thorough understanding of what it entails. I don't know how many times, and I'm sure this has happened with you, Mike, where I ask a borrower when we're starting this process how much they make, and it's one of two answers. Number one, I don't know, let me pull up my pay stub, and they tell me what their net income is, essentially. Or they tell me a number, but when you really dig into it, that number includes bonus, or if they're self-employed, does not include write-offs, or perhaps there's even restricted stock units. All of those three are completely, basically counted differently.
Yeah.
So they don't know what they make.
Yeah, that's a great fact. I mean, a great point you make is that, everybody tells you one thing, but it ends up being something different. I would say 70% of the time when someone tells me what their base salary is, it's different.
100%. Yeah.
And I would say a lot of times lenders are just asking them, how much do you make a year? And they say 200,000, and then in reality it was 110,000, and I just got a bonus this past year for the first time, and we can't use 1 year bonus. We need 2 year bonus. So you get my point. You want to have all this really tight. Absolutely. Before you get out there. So it behooves me that you can, I think gas prices are coming down right now, but the amount of money, time is money, and how much time you spend with somebody, that you don't have the screws really tight before you get out there and you get ready to make an offer. Not to mention that, I think the average time on the market right now, I did some research this morning in Chicago, is 20 to 30 days. If you stack that up to other markets like Texas, South Carolina, the Carolinas in general, I think it's 75 to 90 days.
Definitely different markets with where you go. And Chicago is one of those. It's a hot market. We're still undersupplied. And the number of buyers that are out there is only increasing every day. And so it's becoming more and more competitive. We've been involved in a number of, double-digit offers or competition already this year. And, we're just getting into the spring season.
So let's take it a step further, and we just talked about you got all your documentation pulled together. I think the biggest miss in our industry is the fact that there's no planning that takes place. I think it's just in a market like this, it's the biggest miss. And when you have a market that we're in like Chicago, where something comes on and it's under contract and it closes. So when I say the average market time's 20 to 30 days. That means it goes on the market and it closes in 30 days.
Yeah.
So it's
start to finish.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now. So, when buyers sit down and they get out there with you and you take them out and start showing them houses and condos and whatever the case may be, if they don't know what that, I mean, you as a realtor, you can tell them that kind of stuff and you can explain to them this is going to be difficult. But if they're not comfortable, what I always say, like getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If they're not comfortable with their finances, if they're not comfortable with the risk versus the reward and that type of an offer, like they've got money on the line, and sometimes it's 5 to 10% of their purchase price that they could lose by not, with the offers that you have to make, by not being comfortable with the uncomfortable.
And that's the borrower, right? And I think that also looking at it a different way is the real estate agent. You started this by saying time and money, which is basically your time is money and nobody gets paid until it closes. But we just saw a stat a couple weeks ago that we were at the highest percentage of canceled contracts that we've ever been at. And so when you have the highest number of canceled contracts, what that tells me is people haven't planned. They're not ready. They don't understand. They're going into this property, they're getting competitive and they're winning the offer, and then they're taking a step back and they're looking at, oh wow, how much does it cost me a month? How much do I have to put down? Oh, I don't qualify. And so now we're seeing all these canceled contracts, and guess what? Now the seller is super upset, the listing agent is super upset, and the buyer's real estate agent is upset because it's time and money.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So I had another one that just popped in my head while we were sitting there talking. And I just want you guys to know what's going on out there right now. But we had a client, an agent that called me the other day, and the client was already pre-approved through one of the big banks, right? And he said, I'm going to send the pre-approval over to you so you can see it, but I need them to work with you. Okay, so this is on like a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Which I'll take those calls, but they're always it's always interesting when you get those phone calls on a Sunday afternoon. And he sent me the pre-approval letter, and yeah, it said pre-approval on it. And there were multiple offers. It was a place out in the suburbs, like Palatine, I think. And I said, I hate to break the news to you, but you're never, ever, ever going to win with this letter in hand. And he said, I know, that's why I want to give them to you. Well, I looked at the letter, said 90% financing, which means it was a 10% down payment. That puts you at a disadvantage on multiple offers because you're competing against cash offers. It's a lower down payment. Then it had a list of everything they still need to turn into them. Anything from like bank statements to pay stubs to you name it was on there. And I called the clients and I said, guys, I don't mean to burst your bubble, but
this isn't a pre-approval.
This is not a pre-approval letter. So we had to scramble on a Sunday afternoon and get all their stuff pulled together. By Monday, I had it all reviewed and knew we had a good deal there. But long story short, we get into that offer situation, and I called the listing agent, and she was like a scorned puppy. Like she had been used and abused in the past, so she was on top of her game. She knew what she was asking. She knew the questions that she was asking, and she knew what she was looking for. And by the way, we can't answer personal questions about the borrower's financing and things like that. But man, was she nosy. She wanted to know if they were self-employed. She wanted to know like this and that. And I'm like, I can't. Some of these things I just can't tell you, but like by law. But at the end of the day, they're very strong, and I want you to be confident in the offer that we made. Yeah. And then she said, do they have enough cash to cover, because they had to go way over list price to win the deal? Do they have enough cash to cover it? It's called appraisal gap coverage. If the appraisal doesn't happen, and I'm like, yeah, like. That would have never happened on the other side of it.
They wouldn't have been able to get a hold of them because they don't work on the weekends.
And yeah, exactly. And so the clients didn't have a clue what was going on. Yeah. They were just trusting the people that were working with them. But that goes back to like what you just said a second ago, like, having that planning session, sitting down, talking through the numbers, talking through the tactics and strategies, delivering that information on that meeting back over to the agent. So it's like on a silver platter. Is I think like what ties the bow around it all, so that we're all like, we've talked about it a lot on our previous shows, but like just the communication between all parties on those offers, and also the fact that we look like a professional outfit going into it versus like the right hand doesn't talk to the left, and like we're all on different pages, and you know, I'm sending you a pre-approval letter that says 20%, but the agent's writing it with 10%. Like you don't want that going into this type of a market.
No, and I think the two big things I take based off of what you just said, and as a takeaway to summarize this: number one, not all pre-approval letters are equal.
Yeah.
There's a vast difference, and so you want to really vet it if you're the listing agent, if you're even the buyer's agent. And number two, really and truly, the first step in purchasing a home is sitting down and really planning with a lender to figure out where you're at and how you're going to get to where you need to be, and really getting in depth. And the reason you want to do that is so that when you do get in the situation where there's multiple offers, when you do get to the point where you find that dream home, you know what you're dealing with, you're ready to go, and you've got the team around you to support you to help you get there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you know, I'm going to have a good speaker to back all this up coming up here soon for us that we're going to have on one of our upcoming shows. But when you talk about process, like, and going back to that, so this is to the realtors out there, like, you know, one of the things I took away from that lunch yesterday is he said, the reason I do it that way is because people have the sense of urgency and they want to get out there. And my rebuttal to that is, how do you run your process every time? It's super important. What kind of expectations are you setting for people up front? If there's two types of ways you can go through this business. You can control your clients, or your clients can control you. And so I think it really starts there, like the process. Like, do I have as a realtor, do I have a sit down with them and my initial like interview? Do I know what they want? Do I know what they need? Number two is, do I set the next stages of the process, what that looks like before we can even get out there and look? You have to do these steps, so that we're prepared, right? I mean, you
bridle that energy, like the urgency, bridle it, because you know, in that same story where you came in later after they were pre-approved, and we've talked about this leading up to the show in preparation, you still don't have everything you need to get it to the finish line.
Yeah.
If you can bridle that urgency in the beginning of the process, hey, listen, I really want to get you in this place, but you need to get X, Y, and Z. Now there's a sense of urgency, they can get it in, and we've got everything, so we're ready to go. As opposed to letting them in, getting them what they want, and then trying to get those things. It's that much harder for everybody, and it could cause an issue you don't know because you don't have all the information.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the other side of it too is that sometimes you have to close really fast.
Yeah.
So if you've got an incomplete file and you're scrambling for 2 or 3, like, we're still waiting on some things from the accountant for this deal that I'm working on right now it's not in. So if this was like a 15-day close,
you're in trouble.
To win the deal, then we would have had a lot of problems on our hands, like meeting those deadlines. And again, I don't normally love taking those rush Sunday afternoon situations, but I do it because it's part of our job. But it starts with, like you said, the realtor, because you guys meet the clients mostly before we even have a chance to get the introductions. It starts there, and having that just defined process, whatever that looks like. Winging it worked. It's been working for him.
Has it? Could he have been that much more effective? You don't know if...
Yeah, I mean, his numbers that he wanted to get up to this year, I don't know if that's possible by winging it. It might. I think it's gonna get tougher and tougher. And the deals that we're already seeing are about as tough as I've seen in 23 years.
Yeah.
So there's always, like, anytime you think it's gonna be a walk in the park, there's usually something wrong with it. Yeah. So, but having that defined process, following your process every time. We very rarely deviate from our process, and when we do, we typically have problems.
We had a coaching call together yesterday with our CEO, who's been on here before, obviously super successful. And one of the things that I took from that call was people want to be led. And so you're almost doing yourself and your clients a disservice, because you are the professional. You need to lead them. You need to let them know what they need to do to be the most successful in terms of achieving their goals. And if you're not, it's out the window, and you're not the right one for them.
Yeah. This all worked well in 2002, 2001. You could get away with being sloppy.
Doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't work like that right now. So things have changed. And one other thing too is that we're in Chicago is a you're right. People want to be led, and like I agree with that 100%. But like Chicago is a heavy condo market.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that the last thing you want to do is put someone under contract, get all the way to the finish line, and the deal blows up on you. So we're talking about evaluating the buyers, so that they can make a strong offer. But there's also another element to it too. It's how quickly do you get to a known issue? Because condo buildings have a lot of issues on them right now. How quickly do you get to those known issues or figure that out and communicate that so that it doesn't waste 30 days of someone's life to find out there's a problem at the end of the process?
100%.
And a lot of times we can figure that stuff out pretty quickly up front, like before they even make the offer. Like we can tell you
If this building works or not.
This building's going to go through with flying colors. There's no issues. A lot of closings have gone on, but you can't rely on the listing agent to always be the source of information because they don't always do their homework on the building. So we can be that resource for the agent to not waste time.
100%.
Because again, you drag someone through the mud for 3 weeks and then all of a sudden there's an issue that pops up on the condo that should have been discovered 3 weeks ago, then it could be the reason that they would turn around and rent again.
100%.
And that you lose the commissions and you lose the time and you lose everything.
Planning, preparation, getting all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
That's the key.
It totally is.
Up front.
So guys, I think walking away from today, like we really just wanted to, kind of set the stage for the spring market. What's going on out there right now? What we're seeing, what we're hearing. Like it just, I walked away yesterday scratching my head and I give him a lot of credit because he's done really well. But like, come up with that process. It's not too late in the game. We're heading into that spring market. We're not quite there yet. We usually see that kick off in, March, April, May. So we're creeping up on it right now. But you really got to get your ducks in a row, both as a buyer and as a realtor. And look, if I'm a buyer right now, I want to work with an agent that has all of that organized for me, right? I want to have everything prepared.
Just tell me what to do, when to do it, how to do it.
Yeah.
So that I can be successful in what I'm trying to accomplish. It's not my job. I'm hiring you to do something. Make it happen.
Exactly. So you can win in this market. You just have to win, and with a lot of experts around you, coaching you on the right way to do it, and also protecting you and making sure that they're not putting you into a situation where you could completely be bamboozled and lose money. Because the reality of all this is when it comes full circle, what the risk is for you as a buyer is that when we have to get risky, you have money on the line, right? And it's real money. I'm not talking about $100. I'm talking about thousands of dollars that are on the line that you're putting your team behind to make sure that you execute at a high level. So as you're heading into the spring market, I think Tom would vouch to say the same thing, but if you have any questions, anything that you want us to touch on, anything that like is on your mind, drop us a note, DM us. We follow that stuff pretty closely. We'll always get back to you, but if there's anything that you have on your mind about like what this market looks like, feels like, smells like, we're
Need explanations on.
Yeah, we can answer those questions, and would love to be a resource. By the way, we're on Spotify now.
Yes.
So follow us on Spotify, or follow us on Instagram, YouTube. We'd love to always be resources for you out in the marketplace to where you can win.
That's right.
More than you lose.
So plan, prepare, take it seriously, get involved. This is going to be the biggest purchase and liability in your life, so you want to make sure you got your ducks in a row.
I'm Mike Black.
And I'm Tom Merritt.
And we are More Than a Mortgage.